So, hi. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening. Also, I just want to throw it out there that um, I'm pretty informal. So if you have a question, feel free to interrupt me. Or if like you want to talk about something, just speak up. Or if you don't, I could either way. I can just talk straight through them and can do questions at the end. But okay, there we go. So I'm just gonna start with my background. These are my parents, and like this photograph, just like for me, what I love about photography is finding family photographs, documenting life for yourself. It's kind of like a personal diary, photography, Instagram, like photography in general. So that's really what got me interested in photography. Um, and just to give you a little bit of background of where I grew up, where I was born in Annapolis, Maryland, but my parents grew up in Colorado and they met in Colorado. So I grew up in Colorado. Um, and actually, um, so I grew up in white suburbia, Colorado. So Fort Collins, Colorado. It's about an hour north of Denver. So it's actually closer to Wyoming than it is to Denver, just by like 15 minutes. Um, so I grew up in white suburbia and I was homeschooled till seventh grade. So I definitely felt kind of isolated. And growing up, I was very quiet. My high school essay was about me being reticent, not talking unless I had to, unless someone asked me a question. I was like almost mute, but like not mute completely. And then I was just once I could apply to colleges and start thinking about college, I was so excited to just leave Colorado and just go to the East Coast where there was more diversity. There we go. So I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, and there in arts in photo school, I was still the only Black person, not the only, but very few Black people, probably like three people in the whole program that I would run into. So just like my life has, I've always been, like the outcast or just like felt like I didn't belong. Um, so at RIT, I actually switched my major three times. So I like to do, I'm very like, I try my best to stay true to myself instead of what everyone else is doing. So, and I knew I wanted to do photography. I've been doing it since seventh grade. So at first I went to RIT thinking I was going to be a photojournalist. And then as I was learning more and more and shooting events, I realized I didn't like events. Um, so I switched my major to advertising. And one reason I switched my major to advertising because I wasn't comfortable with lighting. Especially using flash and strobes, natural lighting, of course, is a given. So I really wanted to perfect my lighting skills. And and then as assignments went on, I realized that I didn't like selling things, products. Um, so I switched my major to fine art. And in fine art, I'm also in general like a thinker and I'm kind of always in my head. But at RIT, just with my experience and just being on the East Coast, there is a lot more Black people, but they weren't in RIT, but just locally in Rochester. So I started a project photographing these high school students. So I had to write a proposal to the city, the city school district, the principal of the school, and I think one other person or I had one more letter I had to write. I can't remember who it was to, but I had to get approval to photograph these students because they're minors. So I got permission. It took 5 weeks too. So I also had to think ahead of time before school started and um, just give myself five in relation to classes and whatever, just give myself 5 weeks to allow that permission to go through. So I didn't get permission during class in session. Um, I got permission after school, the after school programs. So a lot of students stayed for tutoring, clubs, sports, and I was allowed access to ask students to photograph them. And then I also had model releases with me in um, I got permission from their parents to photograph them. So I asked the student to take their picture. I took their picture and gave them the model release, and they took it home. And then I would find them, and they would give it back. So this is just, and it's titled Resemblance because I relate. I envied these kids because I really wanted to go to school with students who with other peers that looked like me, other people of color, and so I just envied them. And just also I was really awkward, so like, and they're awkward too, so it just like kind of worked for all of us, the awkwardness and the lighting and everything.
Yeah, Hannah, did you is this all natural light or did you light these?
These are all natural light. So in the school, I think I specifically chose Fujifilm. I can't remember if it's like right now all I shoot is Kodak. But like I think I specifically chose Fujifilm because it was just a little bit more magenta than Kodak. And so like the fluorescent lights in the school, like that's was my strategy because of the fluorescent giving off a green. And then I would always move the students closer to a window or wherever there was natural light. So like here there was just like a skylight, natural yeah, window on the ceiling, and I just put her beneath it. Um, and then
And now, sorry, can you just maybe talk a little bit about your process, like working with them, like how you know, because a lot of times students will ask like why how do you like work with a model or like work with your subject?
yeah, so I definitely like I walk around and then I might see one of these people and then like I kind of approach everyone slowly, just like just so I don't feel like hope I don't want to feel like a predator, like oh like, and then just immediately like
Yeah.
go up to them.
Ambushing.
Yeah. So and I just walk up to them and I just say hi. My name is Hannah. I don't go to school here, but I got permission to photograph and was wondering if I could take your photo. And then they may ask questions and I'll answer them, and then they either say yes or no. But like in this situation, we were both really quiet. So once they said yes, I would try to. I owe it every person I photograph. I try to continue conversation so they're not thinking about what they look like. Um, and it all depends on the person and what I'm going for, but most of the time I'm talking to people while I'm multitasking. So like while I'm looking for the light, while I'm looking for where to frame, where to place the subject and how to pose. So it's like um I've kind of like just trained myself to look and listen to them at the same time so I can keep up conversation, but also work quickly, so I'm not taking up too much of their time. So some of these, like I'm on average with strangers with moments like this of like 5-10 minutes of making a portrait. And this one in particular, the I don't know if you guys had high schools had Spirit Week. So this was Twin Day, and so these are friends dressing up like
That's fun. Always good. Twins are always so photographically interesting, right? Even if they're
yeah,
not real twins.
yeah, yeah, they are. So that was undergrad. And then when I graduated, um, also my life is just lucky. I mean, like I'm privileged. So like I went to a good school. I grew up in white suburbia. So I've had opportunities. But I'm just gonna say this just because the last talk I gave, I had to explain this. I hate the word privilege, even though I use it, and I think a lot of people need to use it today. But I do hate the word because even though I'm privileged, I'm still black. So like it doesn't mean everything is handed to me, and it doesn't mean that it's written on my forehead and that my life is easy. Um, but it just means that I've had more opportunities than most. So after college, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But I had a friend who lived in Philadelphia and had a spare room. So she offered me to the spare room, and it was kind of like a closet, honestly, but I'm grateful. It didn't matter. Um, she offered me the spare room without paying rent until I found a job. So that was like so much better than moving back home to Colorado because I had no idea what I was going to do after undergrad and I didn't have a job. So my friend, so I moved to Philly in 2009, and coming from white suburbia and mostly being in um, white environments, college, um, my college experience, um, I was really unfamiliar with catcalling, and Philadelphia was the largest city that I had ever lived in. But with catcalling, I didn't take it I definitely it made me angry for sure. I felt violated, um, but I did not reprimand the men. My outlook wasn't to teach them anything or discipline them or um, I don't know what word I'm looking for. So um, my outlook was to change the conversation, to change the power dynamic, because I noticed that it had happened to me frequently throughout the day. And I had to do not just walking the street, going to work, going to the grocery store. It was just it was frustrating. And so my way of dealing with it was to ask the men to photograph them. And if they said no, I would respect their choice and not photograph them. And if they said yes, we would, and then again, I would talk to them, get to know them. We would learn about each other, and then I also, same thing, scanning our surroundings to look for the better composition, where to place the subject, how to place their shoulders, etc. So these guys, and and be, and because um, I just changed the conversation, I became friends with these guys, and they started to see me as a photographer instead of a nice piece of ass, so instead of an object. And I like over time I realized that it was just an expression. It's just like a brush off, like it's just like a quick comment. Um, um, but eventually, just like talking to them, the catcalling stopped. Well, it didn't exactly stop. They continued to flirt with me and try to go on a date or do whatever, but I would have to be just blatant and be like, sorry, I'm not interested in a relationship, but I'm a photographer and I want to take your photo. This guy didn't ask just because of the balcony and it was hard to communicate, but I pointed to my camera and he just like naturally did the thing, posed, and just fell into it. And I had a bunch of grocery bags with me. And also, I should say that I'm pretty introverted, so like one, the pandemic does not bother me. I love being alone and being locked down and not having to force myself to go out in society. But um, so every like doing this project, every morning when I would wake up, I would just analyze how I felt and if I felt like talking to people or if I was like, oh, I could talk to people today. And then I was like, oh, I could talk to someone sexually harassing me today, like then I would take my camera with me and I would not provoke anyone. It would just hang on my shoulder. And if once someone catcalled me, then I would ask their permission and yada, yada, yada. And if I wasn't feeling it, I would just leave my camera at home because essentially it's about me. And then of course I would feel out every situation. If I if it didn't feel right, if I felt intimidated, I would not ask them. Um, if if it felt right and I asked them, but like in the middle of our conversation, it felt weird, then I would like just walk randomly in zigzags to just in case someone was following me home, because these are strangers, you don't know who people actually are. But some of them I definitely came to know over time and we became friends. And also it helped that I had bad luck with apartments, that I lived in West Philly, Brewerytown, and then South Philly. So I just like my life in all of these areas. Yeah, so these pictures are definitely for me. I consider them mine. This guy I almost missed. Like he was talking to me, and I was heading to see an apartment that me and my roommate were about to rent, and I was running late, and I had like grabbed something from CVS, and this guy stopped me, and like I talked to him for a little bit, and then I was like, "Sorry, I'm running late," and then I was like, "Oh my God, that's a photograph," and I ran back, and then I stopped him and took a photo. Um,
That's awesome. The opportunity that's like the one that got away, but then you went back and nabbed it. That's great.
yeah, and this guy is like, at the time he was like 40, 44, I think. Looks so young. Does not look 44.
Yeah.
Um, and this, like the non-portraiture are just like how I not how I see myself, but how I want to be approached. And this is just like a fantasy of like, like eventually I want to find love, or like a partner, like and have a family. So this is just like, yeah, just it's in Brewerytown. But like obviously love doesn't happen the way uh movies and these murals portray love to be. And also I'd have to say, since I grew up in white suburbia, like it was in high school I had a really hard time dating. Um and my family is not affectionate. We or at the time we weren't. Like now, thankfully now we are affectionate with each other and tell each other that we love each other, and now we support each other emotionally. But when I was growing up, uh we didn't do that too often. So like this project, so my parents never told me I was beautiful, my brothers never told me I was beautiful or like pretty, or never, felt the need to protect me because I wasn't dating, like, and then, yeah, so like this also helped me realize that I wasn't ugly, um, like all of these men being attracted to me. I was like, oh, maybe I am good looking, and then, so these are my images, this is like a moment in transition in life for me. And this is actually the second photograph I took. His name is Shaq, because I would share my information and keep contact. Um, and he was down for me to photograph him a second time.
So that was the second time you photographed him specifically?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I think the title of this one's called like Reshoot.
well, and would you you mentioned you did the model releases for the high school students. Was that something you did with these guys too?
No, because we're on public property and they're not minors. So
And
um,
that's something we haven't really talked about in this class, like model releases. And maybe we won't like totally get into it, but it's like if you're, you're, yeah, you're shooting someone and the photos might be used for an advertisement or like, some people, some fine artists will even do it just to cover their ass, just in case like someone sees their own picture in a show and they like don't want it to be there. Some people will do that, but I don't think it's like as wide. I don't think it's super widespread, especially in this context. What do you
yeah,
think?
are you asking me?
Yeah, do you think that's true? Like people, like when we were in school, like the people didn't really do that, right? Like the
Yeah, I mean, like now I do it less, but if it is a child, I definitely do it because that's the law, you know.
yeah,
So I always try and follow the law, but if the law, being on public property, the law doesn't require you to have a model release. But like, so if someone, that's why I always ask verbal permission, but also um, I don't do it because if someone did try to sue me, I don't have any money for them to take, and I never made money off of this photograph. So,
yeah.
so it's like it's more like a, yeah. So it's like even if they did, they wouldn't really take anything from me besides like just expressing themselves that they're unhappy with it. And if they are, I would just not show it. I'd take it down. Like I would just take it out of the project. And I would give people my website and stuff, and they definitely had my phone number. Um, and I would try to put these on my website while I was making it. Um, and I'll show you. I have it in the slide. We'll see. This guy was funny. This is the before picture. I was walking home, like minding my own business, and this guy just like pulls over like this. And then I just made this picture. Um, yeah, he was really nice.
It must be so interesting, sort of we talk a lot in this class about like power dynamics in picture making and how like the camera is sort of this powerful thing and there's always sort of this exchange of power that happens whether it's like intentional or not in photography, and it must just be so like just interesting, just like the complete flipping of the power dynamic. It feels, I mean, it's a collaboration too, right, but it's also like a way to reclaim power, and it's just so it's fascinating on a lot of levels, I think.
Yeah, just like waiting for someone to feel righteous, feel the righteousness or feel the need to like to express themselves in such a way to a stranger is it's very interesting. I mean, it's like it's learned for sure. So that's why I never tried to change anybody because like these are adults and it I'm not I am an activist, but I'm like an artist, it's like it's not like, and people don't appreciate like getting in your face and telling you what to do, like so like just them experiencing me, I would like maybe their experience with me help them understand my perspective of such a manner, and maybe and then of course they forget about it too. um and then yeah, and at the time in 2009, like the typical response was to avoid, so like I was one of very few who would respond to them.
Yeah, it must have been so surprising for a lot of them. I feel like being taken aback.
Yeah. And this is Hassan. um he's one that I developed a friendship relationship over time. um and he's a musician, and we walked around, and I made photographs for his album and whatnot. But it's been over 10 years, so I have lost contact with these guys because I did move, leave Philly, um, and then coming back. I mean, I think I can look up Hassan's email, some of their emails and everything, but I just life happens. It gets busy. You move. Life changes. It's like I barely see my friends, my close friends, my best friend. I probably see once a month. Like as you get older, like
Yeah, without being in school, I feel like it's different. It's tougher to stay in touch.
yeah.
This email.
No, it's so funny. But yeah, so like this guy had to see like what I was posting on my website and the work and just totally disregarded it. Now I'm going to talk about the police. So again, I'm privileged. I grew up. I've had opportunities. I like, so, but also I'm black, so it doesn't mean my life is perfect or easy. Um, so this summer, after George Floyd, um, I was on an editorial job for the New York Times to photograph the PS refinery in South Philly on Passyunk Avenue. And actually, David helped me, but this photo, I was alone. Um, so I was freaking out, nervous because it's a job. Any job, always anxiety. I can't, and I've learned to live with it. So it's like you just got to learn to live with it. So I was trying to find every perspective I could of the refinery. And the New York Times really wanted to get an image where you could see some residential areas next to it. But if you've been there, if you drive around it, it's like really like it's hidden quite well. Um, so I had the idea of taking a ladder, being across the street from the refinery, there's this little park area with some houses like that in the shape of an L, and then there's a park, and then the refinery is right here. And so I was in front of the park in the bike lane with my ladder to see if I could like just get a different perspective, like just get taller. And the cars, like it's a very busy road, there's a bunch of semis. So like I really hate timing cars. So like I wanted to get above the cars so I didn't have to time it where cars were not in my photograph. So I take a ladder, I park near someone's house, I see this guy, whatever. I'm allowed to do what I'm allowed to work, my job. So I take out my ladder, my camera, walk to the street, walk away from the residential areas and photograph. And this woman comes up to me, asks me what I'm doing, realizes I'm taking photos. She says, okay. And then she walks to where my car was, where the guy is. And so I realize, oh, someone has like, people are uncomfortable that I'm here with the ladder. So I go talk to the guy and I tell him, hi, I was hired to photograph the refinery. Do you remember the day it was exploded? Or the day it exploded? Because when you work editorial jobs for, you know, you also like you're not technically a journalist. Well, you are a journalist, but like so you have to follow journalistic ethics. So like I have to follow the law. I can't cause any controversy or whatever. Um, so I approached the guy and was like, "Hi, I'm a photographer. I just wanted to let you know I was hired to photograph the refinery. I understand having a ladder makes people could you might be skeptical of me because I had a ladder." And then I asked him about the day, and he was very nice to me, talked about the day it exploded, how crazy it was, yada, yada, yada. I say thank you. I get in my car and I leave. And so like this guy's house was not, he was on the edge of the road. Excuse me. Um, so as I left, like his house is here, this is the road, and I leave and I turn. So in my review mirror, I can see the guy talking to the cops, like kind of like this shot. And so like I expected him to tell me, I expected him to tell the cops that I was okay. Unfortunately, he did not. Completely racist, blatantly racist. The cops pull me over in my car, and I get pulled over, and they don't believe me, and they want proof of photo credentials, and I keep telling them, as I was on public property, I'm allowed to photograph on public property because that's the law. I can't get in trouble if I'm on public property. Um, so they gave me a hard time. They let me go. There's more to the story because I was angry and I argued with them, but they let me go. And then a month later, they show up at my apartment asking for photo credentials. So I just have to say this because I never get the cops called on me. And just this time, I'm sure all of you are aware of everyone's on edge and the division and the just everything going on.
And this was like right after this was after the George Floyd murder and after the BLM protests, and so yeah, people were on edge. People are still on edge, but it's like it sucks. And you are allowed to you're allowed to photograph on public property. Like even if you're even if you're photographing a person, like technically you're allowed to photograph them. Um, you know, don't really you shouldn't photograph if they don't want you to photograph them. Like I think I mean it's ultimately up to you to make that ethical call. But if you're just photographing like a building or a refinery, like Hannah was, that's totally, even if she wasn't working for the Times, it would be legal to do that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share my story because it's just absurd. It's just really absurd. And the fact that they came to my house a month later, um, when I was let go, and I still had to show proof of my photo credentials. So if you work for people, if now I always get a letter of assignment to show proof, um, which is still absurd, but just with current, I mean, just be careful, be attentive, um, learn how to be attentive, to pay attention to your surroundings, um, read people, and definitely just be safe. But I wanted to share that story because because I never personally had a experience with the cops at me directly until this. But the reason why I made this next project called Cursed by Night because um, as a young kid growing up in Fort Collins, just going to the convenience store, like just be I was always watched, shopping for clothes. I was followed, my brothers were always pulled over by the cops. And and then just like in larger cities, like other areas, the Black communities are harassed and are purposely intimidated by the police. And then, of course, Trayvon Martin, all these innocent people who have died in the hands of cops is the reason why I made this project called Cursed by Night, because my thought process behind it is that just because like people are so, for those who see it in black and white, for those who um, make their decisions and actions based off of because someone's skin color is black. I made this concept that black people are cursed, specifically black men, just because of this perception, because of the media always having a negative, a negative image of Black men, especially underprivileged Black men. There's oh yeah, I don't know. You guys get it, right? So what I would do is I'd walk around. Oh, I should say I this project I made at Yale. So after RIT, um, I moved to Philly, and then 3 years outside of I waited 3 years to apply to grad school, and then I got into Yale, and then I made this project at Yale. And my uh, thinking behind this is I would walk around at night in Brooklyn, East New York, Brooklyn, Harlem, uh, Hartford, Connecticut, and Philly. I would walk around at night and find. So if you take this guy out, if you take the person out of this image, and it's just the stoop, I would just walk around at night and look for backgrounds, to look for scenes that looked like it could be in a horror movie, like that it could be used to portray evil, or like something bad is going to happen, to darkness. So then I would find the scene, and then I would just wait for a Black person to walk by, and then ask and put them in the scene, and tell them that I'm a student at Yale. I have this project. It's a conceptual project. I use available light, so it's at night. So all my exposures were at least like 12 seconds long. So my subjects have to stay pretty still. They can't move. I have to communicate that. And that's just what I would do. So these first few are like, they didn't make the cut on my website, but just to give you more images to look at.
And this is all film still. You're still shooting medium format.
Yeah, I prefer. I grew up learning film, so for all my personal work, I shoot film, and for editorial assignments, I prefer to shoot film. Some people will pay for it. If they don't pay for it, I'll shoot digital. But prefer film is like my, and I still use the same camera since the high schoolers. Like I used a Mamiya RZ, and now I use a Mamiya RB. So I've pretty much been using the same camera for over 10 years, and just get to know your lens, like, and try not to use zoom lenses, but get to know your lens. Like the more you know, like the second you know how your lens is gonna, like how, like when you see when you see a photograph you want to make, you want it to be like, just, you want to know exactly what you want to do with your lens, or where your lens is going to be, and then you just move around and continue to discover different perspectives. To City Hall. um yeah, I just like, for I don't know if other people get this, but I just really wanted like something skeletal. But like, definitely in the center of this photograph, my focus was the white man with the big white book. This is a friend of a friend. He did that with his hands, and it was his choice, so I just let him do it. This image Sorry, I don't know why I'm like coughing. I went for a walk this morning and it was like
It's cold, right?
30 degrees. Yeah.
That's your lungs.
This one's called King Solomon. I met King Solomon when I was I was testing out my friend's handmade Steadicam. She made a Steadicam from sorry. Let me just grab a cough drop. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please, please. I'll just
Okay, oh, real quick.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so I really like what Hannah was saying about the camera. So she's used that camera for 10 years, and being so familiar with your equipment can make you so adept and just able to just when you see the photograph just to grab it and not have to like fiddle with your controls and like be unsure of how to make the picture technically. And that's not something that happens overnight. Obviously, that happens with experience, and it takes a lot of shooting and a lot of just a lot of making work to really have the camera be an extension of you. And once you're at that point, like you know you can make magic. Okay, all good.
Yeah,
All
all good.
cool.
Um, so my friend Hannah Hummel, King Solomon is a filmmaker, and he when I met him, he had lived in Brooklyn for 10 years, but originally is from Nigeria. So King Solomon saw me playing with this handmade Steadicam. Also, you you can make your own equipment with the cheap way. You don't have to buy everything, all the expensive stuff. So anyway, I was playing around with this handmade Steadicam. He saw me. He pulled over and he's like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "My friend made it." And he was like so interested in it as a filmmaker. And we got to talking. Then he learned I was a photographer. We became friends, and I told him I was doing this project, walking around the city at night, photographing black men, and sometimes he would help me out. Sometimes he would just hang out with me when I was look for scenes. And then eventually he invited me into his home, and this is his home. And this is also his home. So I asked him if I could take a photograph. He said yes. So I brought a clamp light, and he's just like, can you see my mouse? Okay, so like he's like sitting right here on a chair, and then I have a clamp light, simple light you can get at Home Depot, and I just shined it to cast his shadow on the wall. And then he had these leaves, so I used the leaves to create the claw-like structure or figure. And I got lucky because he was very helpful and very into it, and he likes this photograph, and we still talk. um, but he fell asleep, which was perfect because it took me forever to get the claw right, perfect. So it's just like I just let him sleep, and I just like spent like an hour just like taking so many pictures. And this is what I got. And this is King Solomon. I actually might see him this weekend because I might go to New York. But COVID, I don't know.
That car light is always so good. Like I love the way light filters in and the way you mix the light sources here, like the green of the I don't know sodium vapor. Is that what makes that color? Like I'm not sure of the
I
just
guess so.
I don't know. It's just so the contrast of colors, like the way the light is on his face, and then the background on the window. It's just like photographically, it's just not to mention like the beauty of the portrait itself, but just like the light does so much here.
Yeah, we're waiting at a stoplight, so the red is coming from the red light. Um, yeah, and I guess that building has specific light. Sorry, I don't know.
I don't know either, honestly. Just
I definitely like sat and stared at this composition and at this composition for an hour before taking it. And then I got lucky because um, in the middle of the exposure, this car drove off, so it's like kind of ghost like. This is family friend. His name is Daryl Perkins. He lived in Hartford when I was at Yale. That's his wife. They're married. So I think I was watching Hitchcock at this time, but I just really I wanted to make it look like he was protecting her. And so, and yeah, just like they're afraid of something, hiding from something. Um, and what is interesting, before I tell some people that, some people tell me that it looks like they're having an affair. So like just that, like I don't know, and yeah. So I mean, you can't know everything about with the photograph. Definitely need. But that's what's lovely about photographs is that your imagination, it allows your imagination to go places, especially when you're speaking conceptually. And then it's just like, well, why would I have that thought? So it's just like the purpose of this project is for people, like I made this project for people that would, like my friends, like at RIT, like we would go get gas and they would see a bunch of black people outside the gas station, and then we're like, let's go to a different one, and I'd be like, why? Like, what's wrong? Like, doesn't make any sense. And then I would make my friend go in anyway, and it would be fine, like, and then like, or just walking down the street, and there's a black man on the corner, and other black friends would dash across the street because they didn't want to pass through a crowd of black men. And like that's why I make these photographs, because it's all about the perception, about what your brain makes it seem like it looks like. So like this guy, like I didn't ask permission for this guy, but just because he's like looking at something, and like the woman's looking the same direction, does it feel like something's happening? Like it's just what it looks like. Like don't believe your brain is what like this project is for for people who are afraid of black people. Don't believe your brain. That's what this project is, because this perception has hurt taken people's lives. This one, I was walking. I think this is in Crown Heights. Um, I saw someone walk past me and like walk under the light where he is standing. So it was like a flash. So it was like the person was dark, then it was like a flash, and then it went dark. So I waited. I think it was an hour also. I just waited for the perfect person for the image to walk by, and I asked this young man, and I just really liked his jacket. Yeah, and just like placed him there.
Yeah, I feel like it's so powerful, this use of like physical darkness to represent this cursedness, this societal cultural curse on black men. It's just really again and again in these images. It's like, so powerful. Some of
Thanks.
these I'm seeing for the first time, which is really cool. for me.
Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, it's just like only we, the people, can end this curse by not believing certain perceptions. So again, kind of like me talking to the men who sexually catcalled me, like just talk to people and maybe you won't be afraid of them. Like if you have this perception, where's the evidence? It's never happened to you? Like evidence of you personally experience. And there's a long history of why this perception is on the Black community, like the KKK is still in the police force, like um so this are two friends that I made during this project that also helped me with the project while I was shooting it. We became friends. They live in Atlanta now, so it's still hard to keep contact. Every now and then we'll text each other. Their name are Steven and Brendan, so they're brothers, and I really just wanted to Brendan is this figure here. I'm kind of looking over his shadow or his shoulder, and then that's Steven. And this is them together. They're brothers. And they helped me out a lot while I was at Yale. Like this is my favorite short film. It's kind of like an experimental documentary. It's on my website called Blueprint, and it also has to deal with these themes of Black men being harassed by the cops, and then I juxtapose it with Chills and Steven because they at the time were emerging musicians. So I interviewed them. This image represents me because I have two brothers, but my younger brother, we're a year apart, and we have the same exact background. We have the same parents, but the way his life, society's views on him, and we have the same background, came from the same place, same opportunities in high school, but once he turned 14, like society was very brutal to him. I'm not gonna tell his story because he doesn't want me to, but but the purpose of this image is like we're siblings, we have the same background, same parents, same high school education, but I went to Yale and he ended up in prison. So like that just, like this is the world we live in. And now he's not in prison, but like he's about to he's a senior in college. He's about to graduate and he's a great person, never deserved to go to prison, but just how our lives went completely different directions because of people constantly putting him down, holding him down. So again, like my brother and I have the same background, but I'm more privileged because I've had more opportunities and people accept me more because I'm a woman. And so this image is like, yeah, I'm not going to explain it, but I did, this is an example of carry your camera with you everywhere you go because you never know. So this, like, if I did not have my camera with me, this image would not exist. So like while I was photographing at night, and let me know if I'm going over. Am I going over?
No, I mean, we have until 11:30, but so
Okay,
you
cool.
can decide how long you want to go. But I do want to have time for questions if there are any at the end.
Okay, so like
Going,
oh, cool. We have plenty of time.
yeah.
Cool. So Brooklyn, New York City, it's impossible to find a parking spot. So, especially after midnight. So, I frequently parked illegally and I got towed 3 times during this project. And one of the times, my oil tank got damaged. So, and the repair was like over $600. So I went to the, and being a college student, of course, I didn't have any money. So like I went to New York City, this city building to file a claim to try and get my money back. And then of course I looked out the window and there it is, like I didn't have to do anything. I only had 3 frames left in my on my roll of film. So like this is carry your camera with you. Well, I did have to time it, but like and frame it, but like.
Sometimes as photographers, we're gifted these moments, and but you still have to be there and know that the moment is happening to make it happen.
Um, and then 2018, this is my project after grad school. It's called Semaphore. Um, and Semaphore are like pretty much like 2 flags. Um, they're usually white. They're used to like communicate to like boats docking. So like you have 2 flags and one in each hand, and um, certain positions mean has a is the letter of the alphabet or a number. So you have to spell when you communicate. You spell, and that's how people from afar know what you're saying. So my concept behind Semaphore is I at this time I didn't want to talk specifically about race, but just about identity in general, and I wanted to talk about how and I wanted to use photography, which is all about the surface. It's 2 dimensional. Um, it's just an image. I just wanted to talk about our identity, how like just looking at me, you don't know who I am unless I tell you. So like this is about how every single person literally has to spell out their identity to people, no matter who you are and no matter what you look like. And for some people, it's like for family, sometimes I felt like certain family members didn't know who I was until, I turned 30. So it's just like life is communicative. So and then my thought behind this is like this was taken in 2013 while I was at Yale, but I didn't use it until Semaphore. This is my dad, and that's actually my backyard in Fort Collins, Colorado, or old backyard, not anymore. Um, and just the fact that he's standing back in the shade, just watching, like I kind of see him as a judgment. And then these are my sister's feet. She's diabetic, so like your feet and your limbs are really important. And my dad is very critical. He's non-affectionate, so he would give her a hard time about taking care of her feet. So I just really wanted to photograph them. And then this is the tree, um, just going like, what's the word? Gravitating to the darkness, to the shade. And I just love that this grave is alone and caving in on itself. This was a former CCP student. She, um, I got lucky. I found this area for the lighting. I remember driving somewhere and I was like, wow, the light in at this specific time in this place is beautiful. And I always wanted to photograph her, so I asked her if I could photograph her, and we meet here, and I got lucky again. She had just been proposed to, and she doesn't know if she wants to marry the guy. So like she was just in her own head, and like so it's just just waited, positioned her, and then just waited for her to go back to thinking of if she wanted to marry this guy. This is Inez. I put an ad on Craigslist. I was like female photographer looking for female to photograph in bathing suit on beach because I had the specific idea. But this idea is like the advertisement, how in society how society um, uses the surface to for identity. Like um, fashion, just imagery in general. So this is like the advertising. This is Inez. There's two parts to this image. So this is Inez. This is like the advertising shot, but like so this is just what I'm thinking behind it. And then this is Inez fixated on her beauty, or the idea of beauty, that beauty is as a physical trait. And we all know it's an inner trait, and there's many aspects of beauty, but the most popular idea of beauty is the surface and the female. So I wanted to um, comment on that idea. And so Inez is possessed by this idea, um, and just incorporating death, sort of. I don't know. Trying. And I should say, just for visual literacy, like originally, I my plan, and Inez was told all about it, and I did make the photograph because I told her my ideas and the reason why I wanted to make this. She's was cool about it, and originally I wanted her to vomit on herself, so I made this handmade vomit with oatmeal, edible food, and we made a photograph of her, like just like in the kind of in the same composition, but just like a little bit further pulled back. But then just looking at the image, like I couldn't stop thinking about bulimia. And so like since I was thinking about it, I was like other people could take this image out of context. So I went with I was like, roll your eyes back and look possessed. So this came out better. This is Kayla and Zayn. Originally, I was gonna photograph Kayla in the bathing suit too, but then she told me she had a son, and she agreed for me to photograph them together. And I spent about an hour with them. This was the last location I took them, and Zayn, he naturally fell into this pose because he was watching grown men play soccer. So again, just like lucky, and then just working quickly, knowing my lens, knowing where I wanted to place the lens, and just already knowing the exposure and just taking it before I lose the gesture. So like the whiteness is kind of the Semaphore reference. Like I tried to, yeah. This is an old neighbor. This is like Oxford in like 21st maybe. And literally after this photograph, the tow truck showed up. Says Simon. Um, so my main income is a equipment manager at CCP, and so I frequently, well, before the pandemic, would eat lunch at Whole Foods, and I met Simon at Whole Foods. Just loved his hair, his figure, everything about him, and he's actually a photographer himself, and we use the same exact camera. And yeah, allowed me to take his portrait. He lives in New York now. Oh, I guess that's all. Or I have my Magnum application.
Yeah, did you wanna I don't know how much is it how much long is it short? Is it how is it
It's
something
50, it's 50 images. We could just do it in the background and talk, or I don't have to do it at all.
I'd love to see it. I think yeah, why don't you put it up and then we can also talk and maybe yeah, maybe you can say because some of them are images we've seen already, right? So maybe okay,
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, Hannah, like maybe you could talk a little bit about the process of being nominated for Magnum and yeah.
Yeah, so I was asked to apply. Um so yeah, I took advantage of the opportunity. I was never considered myself Magnum material, or, like, just never considered Magnum for myself. But they asked me to apply, um, because, like everyone else, they're trying to add more diversity to their institution, but they definitely made sure to tell me that I was chosen for my talent and for my work, not just because I'm black. Like, so, and they typically photojournalists are usually become members, and they want to add more diversity image wise too. So they're adding more people who have a fine art and a documentary aspect to their work. So, oops. Okay, yeah. So, my approach to the application was to start strong and end strong. I got advice, and that's what they told me. So I combined Semaphore and Cursed by Night to, like, almost sequentially make it feel like I'm telling a narrative. You want the images to work together to speak to each other.
Yeah, maybe we could why don't we open it up? Does anybody have questions for Hannah? Either about the image making process, specific images. Um, I think no topic is off the table if Hannah agrees with that.
Yeah, definitely. Ask me anything. And then I also could show just like a small clip of what I'm working on now, if you guys want. It's a video.
Yeah, can I get some head nods in the chat? Yeah, we want to see the video. We have questions. I think people want to see the video.
Okay. So before I move on, there's some images from editorial work that I
Yeah,
included in
sorry.
application.
Yeah, I haven't seen these. These are from each one is from a different magazine.
Yeah, so the new ones, that like this bust is from the New York Times Magazine. Um, The pop-up magazine is on the left. On the left here is New York Times Magazine.
And I
This,
love that spilled milk picture. It's just incredible. It's like the classic like drinking milk in school, right? You have
yeah.
these shitty little milk boxes.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, that was from Resemblance from exploring walking, photographing high school students. And the story, the editorial piece for this portrait, it was about how this family was already struggling before the pandemic, job wise, and then how the pandemic impacted their family. This was for the New Yorker. Brent Leggs here on the left. He's a I could sorry, it's always hard for me to say this word. Preservationist. Um, so he specifically looks for African American historical structures to preserve them, to keep um, to keep them from eroding and going damage, and making them historical structures. So the cottage on the right, that's the Winfrey Cottage. It was in Richmond, Virginia. Right now, it's right next to the slave jail, and what used to where the slave jail used to be located. And there's a grave there where a bunch of slaves were buried. It was very like ghost-like vibes, I have to tell you. But Winfrey Cottage, she was one of the first to own her own home and be free, and she would, like help a lot of slaves and whatnot. And then this is City of Brotherly Love. You guys already saw this. So,
Awesome.
sorry, I have to turn on my drive.
No
It's gonna be a second before the video comes up.
No problem. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, anything at all, or any comments? Any pictures they especially liked?
I had a question. Thank you so much, Hannah, for talking with us today. I just had a question. So how has like the pandemic influenced your concepts with photographs? Or I know that you take a lot of portraits, so how has that impacted what you photograph now?
I'm still photographing the same things pretty much, or it's it's made me more emotional and more passionate. So yeah, I feel more like an activist, but like the personal work that I'm doing now, for a second, I don't know if you guys know of the NFAC. They're a black militia, but they're not. Their outlook is to protect other black people. They don't want to overthrow the government or anything like that. So it's just like an accent. Like, so I went to photograph them, but those portraits aren't very accessible because they keep their identity secret. So like those portraits aren't as emotional and as personal or like genuine as my other portraits. Um, and I've been making video. So like I guess the pandemic has just made me more of an activist, and more passionate, and then Magnum of course is like, all right, you got to get in shape and you got to keep just make work to prove yourself. So I'm shooting a lot more than I used to before the pandemic. And the pandemic, George Floyd, the godsend of George Floyd, it's absolutely horrible that it had to happen to him, that it did happen to him. And for this, for, and now all of a sudden I'm like, I get Magnum, I'm working all the time, I have a bunch of freelance. Um, now society is actively making their spaces more diverse. So I've been working a lot more. The pandemic has been good to me. Not unfortunately, but like compared to everyone else, um, it's been good to me. So I'm grateful and thankful, but also pissed, but and still like want to make work about like all the issues going on. And I think I'm leaning into talking about Philadelphia cops specifically. So I'm just like I'm ready to just like call out the cops. Um, Someone else had a question.
Zaire, yeah.
Hi, I really like all the photographs, and I think they're really amazing. I also like the subject matter that you talked about, assumption, because when I was still a teenager, when I was 17, I had my own experience with assumption, so I could like definitely like relate to that. And I loved all the work. It was really amazing.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna I'm paying attention to the NFAC, but they were kicked off of social media, so it's kind of hard to follow them. And the NFAC, they're all across the United States, so and they're getting more and more private. So, and you have to be ex-military to be a member of the NFAC, so that's not me. And they already have their own photographers, so yeah, I can't get inside NFAC, so I'm still watching them to see if they plan a formation or right now they're protecting. I'm sure you guys saw the girl in Louisville, Kentucky, how she just shut city council down, and that what is it called? Crap. Anyway, so she after her talking to the cops and expressing herself about the cops and what they do in her community, the cops started to follow her. So she hired the NFAC to protect her from just because she felt uncomfortable being followed. So I'm still paying attention to them and just waiting to see if they make an announcement and if I can just quickly go to where they are and make work. But in the meantime, I'm focusing on Philadelphia. And so after Walter Wallace Jr., not Monday night, I was once I heard the news, I was disappointed, devastated, and I thought about going out and protesting, but for myself, my mental state, I couldn't handle it, and I decided not to go out. But I went out the Tuesday, the night before, or the night after, and the protest was still pretty intense. So this is footage of me at the protest. It's 30 minutes, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm just going to show you the very last clip, because this last clip is why I want to continue this and why I want to really target the police, pretty much. Because I think it's inappropriate of how they handled this. Okay, so this guy in the white, he's the deputy commissioner for the police department. He's not the main commissioner, but he's one of them. Oops.
Whatever y'all go through, I got shit. My question, but what we go through, you say they protect us. Niggas die every day. Why not talk about that? They don't care about us, bro. They don't care about us.
A conversation about controlling your own gun.
They don't care about it. Niggas don't give a fuck. Why would they talk to us if they look at us as black? Would you talk to somebody you look at as black? Because I'm tired. Because I'm tired. Why they get to carry on whatever way they get to carry on, and I gotta come with them with respect? When do they gotta approach me with respect? When does that happen? That's respect. They're ready to fight. You're ready to fight. That's not respect.
Sorry, I think it's
Do we care about me? All you have to do is say yes. That's it. Got
Their
one
job
person.
is to get
All you
things
have to do is
under
say yes.
control, not
Like,
to
here, easy
instigate
one. Right.
aggression.
That ain't-
Not to continue aggression. Their job is to get things under control, not to continue aggression.
Exactly.
They're not, everything that we've been saying has not been under control. You're supposed to be the most, you're supposed to be the most in control.
And everything's under control right
Not in the past.
Everything's right. What are you talking about right now? Everything's under control.
And from now on, it better be. You better learn how to use your gun. So you better learn how to keep it armed. I mean, if you're going to get in the gun and be afraid to use a gun, you should learn how to use it responsibly.
I gotta shut it.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. So pretty much, like this last scene, that young man, he's 17. He's 17. When that pisses me off, because where everyone's at the protest, there's that wall of cops with their riot gear, and it's peaceful. You know, of course, people are voicing their opinion. You know, F the police. You know, people are angry and have a right to be angry. But what I did not appreciate is how that commissioner went and talked to that young man who's 17, a minor, specifically to ask him how he could help. And then later on, like, you can hear, I can't contain myself because I'm so angry, you know, like, you like, forget, like, I'm just like, forget the ethics of documentary. This is my experience too. I'm going to talk, you know, I felt the need to talk, you know, like, so I voiced my opinion and to the commissioner. And then once I found out that student was 17, I told the cop, I was like, this is inappropriate. He's a minor. We're at a protest. And he just got off parole that day. And I was just like, you know, like, if he, like, he was more in control than I was, you know, like, so if we switched places, the cops could, like, if, you know, and then there's a moment where he starts touching the young man, and I start yelling at him to stop touching him. Sorry, I could have showed it, but I'm just going to tell you. But yeah, so I thought, like, the police commissioner now, I have a potential meeting with him, whatever, but, like, so I don't know. I'm just, like, very worked up, and this is what I'm working on. And, like, this is what I want to focus on. Just trying to get into the community, and, like, this clip is this. Hopefully, you'll see it in the next month or so, because I want to get it out there soon. But just that moment where the police are asking a 17-year-old how they can help him, and is very inappropriate. So you guys, I'm sure you guys don't know what you want to do with your life. At 29, I was still figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. So it was, in my opinion, highly inappropriate for him to ask a 17-year-old how he could help him. And so I interrupted, and I was like, he needs an adult present to talk to you. You should, like, you know, the answers to these questions. You know, it's deeper than just being bored. Poverty, education, Black communities are specifically targeted and intimidated, you know. So, like, you know, like, that scene, for me, it was pretty dynamic of how they approached this young man. And then all these people are voicing their opinions, and they know, and I want to say, pretending that they're trying to talk with us and ask us how they could help us, when they know the answers to these questions. You know, they know the answer. So it's just like that was really frustrating. So I'm just going to focus right now. I think I'm going to try my best I can. And especially now that I'm, like, in the police system, there's a report on me for being suspicious, you know, like, because I had a camera. After the cops when the cops came to my house, they said there was a report on me. But like, so now, like, this is, yeah, so this is what I'm working on. I just want to show people that it's deeper than what they think it looks like and what they think, what social media, what the internet tells you. So like, I want to get in, but it gets complicated because now I plan on getting interviews of people and their experiences with the cops, but that could get them in trouble. So I have to figure out um, how to make it anonymous and still feel impactful, you know, and tell people stories. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I think I speak for everyone when this incredibly beautiful and generous talk you've given. And so please join me in thanking Hannah for coming and talking to us today. Yeah. So great. Yeah. Do you have any? I'm gonna do what Greg does. Do you have any advice for young photographers and artists out there?
Yeah, just stay true to yourself. Recognize when you're trying to please people and don't do things just to please people.
Great. I think that's great advice. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Unless there are any last questions for Hannah or, oh, maybe if students want to get in touch with you, would that be something you'd be open to?
Yeah, like you can email me for sure. Just keep in mind that I'm kind of busy, so if I don't reply right away, just don't take it personally. But I will definitely reply when I can.
Yeah, and I don't think you're too big of an Instagrammer, but you do have an Instagram, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share Hannah's email address, or is it on your website also?
Actually, it's not on my website, so it's pretty much Hannah Price _ photo video is my Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that would be a good way to get in touch with you, just DMing you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And I definitely respond faster to DMs because it feels like text than email. Like
Feels so formal.
I'm pretty behind in email. Like I'm kind of like 2 weeks behind in email.
Well, I don't think anyone will begrudge you for. I know you're busy. It's a busy time, and it's unprecedented times in a lot of ways, especially with the new shutdown. And yeah, but thank you so much for doing this. And
I
great.
have one more word of
Yeah,
encouragement.
please.
Just in my experience, I deal with a lot, and you don't have to show me the video, but you can cut this or keep it if you want. I don't care. So like, I deal with a lot of authority or white men specifically. So don't, and they make it seem like our generation is sensitive. And there was one comment to me specifically of how these days social media, everyone is on anxiety pills now because of social media, and people today are just overly sensitive. But that's not what it is. In my perspective, people today are just not afraid to speak up. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to share your opinions. Definitely respect people, but don't let people limit you. So just like within this time, like speaking up and voicing yourself is more important than pleasing people, because that's yeah. So that I just want to say that, and just don't let people intimidate you. Stay true to yourself and be a good person. Speak out for other people when you hear something, but don't attack them like in a respectful way. Treat people how you want to be treated. So if my friend were to call me out, like I want my friends to call me out, because they, I trust them. So like in the way they approach me, I appreciate it. So, but if it's a stranger or someone you work with, just be attentive to the situation and read people and be respectful as you can, but always speak up against bad people.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to leave it. So my class, you're all your final projects. You should be well on your way. You should be shooting. It's coming up faster than you know it. And so enjoy the rest of your days. And thank you again, Hannah. This was amazing. All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Be well. Stay well. Be safe.